I'm going to throw in an editorial comment before I add my next question. And I'll say this as a former Republican staffer, 16 years working for Republicans in the Senate. The fact that we do not have universal pre-K is an abomination to me. It is such an easy solution to a tough problem. And if we can subsidize oil and gas exploration, if we can subsidize ethanol, why can't we subsidize children? I mean, as a nation, I think we should grow children as a priority over growing corn. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, they're both important, but I would place growing children above growing corn.
Yes.
If we invested more in our children, perhaps we would be able to invest less in them as senior citizens, because they will have prepared
for us.
Exactly. So Republicans, if you're listening to me, get on board with subsidizing universal pre-K. Now, going to the question about winners and losers. Obviously, this last debate on the debt limit demonstrated that neither party is really truly interested in cutting spending. I mean, let's be honest. Okay. That's what that debate revealed. I wrote a blog a couple of months ago about how we're going to need a bigger boat just to solve the promises that we've already made in our current entitlement structure, to be able to afford the promises that we have. And what I mean by bigger boat, we're going to need more revenue. Okay. It's just a simple fact. There's not enough money in the budget to cut elsewhere to afford all the promises that we've made. And if we want to invest in our children, if we want to invest in our future, okay, we're going to need a bigger boat. We need more revenue. But the question always comes to, how do you raise more revenue without harming economic growth, right? Everybody always says there's a trade-off between, a new revenue and productivity, economic growth. So how did your committee took a look at that? What are some ideas about raising revenue that are less distortionary than just raising income tax rates?
Well, okay, these are not at all new ideas, but broadening the tax base, which means instead of just looking at the existing tax base and the rate structure and raising rates, let's first look at the holes in our tax base. Like, why do we not have a comprehensive income tax base? And that is mostly because we have these things called tax expenditures, which are not tax rate cuts, they're base cuts. They're cutting holes in the tax base. If you look at the individual income tax system, most of the tax expenditures are the great bulk of the tax expenditures are actually those that only go to higher income households, because they're the kinds of tax expenditures that only if you owe federal income taxes would you benefit from these tax subsidies, these holes in the tax base. So as Bob knows, I've always advocated for actually, personally, I would get rid of most tax expenditures, but I would at least pare back some of the most expensive tax expenditures. The very most expensive is, of course, the exclusion of employer-provided health care, which is a very politically sticky one for members. But then there are itemized deductions, like the deductions for mortgage interest and state and local taxes and charitable contributions that disproportionately go to high income households, that subsidize those activities at a higher rate the higher your tax bracket. And so for every dollar that you spend on charitable contributions, you get a bigger percentage discount the higher your income is. So those are the kinds of ways that economists know this. They're inefficient ways of losing revenue, and so they're ways that you can raise revenue without distorting economic activity.